What's up? My name is Adam Rutledge, and my passion is being a musician.
Welcome to Passion to Reality. I am your host, Matt Liller. Today, I am very excited to bring you an interview with musician Adam Rutledge. I've known Adam for a number of years and can personally attest that he is a phenomenal singer and live performer. In this interview, we discuss how he found his passion for music, what those formative years looked like, how he never really had a plan B, and just how his passion led him all the way to a great appearance on national television. So at this time, I welcome Adam Rutledge to Passion to Reality. Welcome to the Passion to Reality podcast. I'm your host, Matt Liller. I am thrilled to be here with the podcast's very first guest, a friend of mine, Adam Rutledge. Adam is a phenomenal musician. I was thinking about this the other day. I think we've known each other for about 14 years now, so that makes both of us seem kind of old. Yeah. But Adam, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Man, I'm honored you thought of me. Appreciate you having me.
So, like I said, Adam is a phenomenal musician, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you got bit by the music bug, and you've played music, made music. You're a phenomenal singer. You kind of came up, through the ranks. A lot of years and a lot of time and a lot of reps in there. And so I want to just jump right into it. How did you get bit by the music bug? Presumably, I'm assuming when you were pretty young.
Yeah, so I grew up around it. My dad was in bands. My uncle was in a very musical family. So when I was 4 or 5, I got bit by the drum bug. I was a drummer first, and I would go to there was a Chuck E. Cheese, which is still, I think, open here in town. It was called Showbiz Pizza back then. And they've got these mechanical animals that play. They have a band there, right? And so I would go there, and I was mesmerized by this band. And they sold records at the time, I'm dating myself, but it was like a record. Yeah. And so, and they were basically just covers of Beatles songs. And so I guess I won enough tickets, or my parents just bought me the record, and I'd go home, and my dad would put that record on, and I had a little drum set, and I just played to the record. And I was decent enough I could keep a beat to it. And so my dad was like, "Okay, it's a natural thing." So that's where it started. I fell in love with it then. My dad was a church organist, and I was in church choir, so it was music everywhere for me, and it was pretty, I was heavy into that until I found Michael Jordan, and then things changed for a few years. But that's where it started there.
That's what I was going to ask is what instruments did your dad play?
He's a pianist, organist, and he's an amazing singer, like way better than I ever. He's a great singer, great singer.
All right, so you're 4 and 5. You got bit by the Chuck E. Cheese bug and the records, and you got the drum kit, and you're keeping a beat. Mm-hmm. Where does it go from there?
So, like I said, I got bit by the basketball bug, and then when I was 13, I heard a buddy of mine gave me a tape. We were on a church field trip. We were going to ski, and he gave me a tape. It had Freebird on it. The 14-minute live version of Freebird, and I heard this guitar solo, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. I have to be able to do that. And I asked for a guitar that Christmas, got it, and just buried myself in guitar from about that time, until now. I've just been eaten up with guitar.
How did you learn to play the guitar? Did you have a guitarist in the family, or because obviously that was before the days of YouTube, and so did you have the little books and here's the chords?
Well, so my uncle played guitar, and he lived next to us, so I would get pointers for him, but I just picked it up by ear. You just, start out by, you hear a note, and you find it, okay, that's that note, and I just kind of learned how to play from just listening and just figuring it out. But my uncle would show me like simple power chords and, basic stuff, but then it was just listening to records and emulating that. You just figure it out. I just wanted to do it that bad. I just did it.
And so with singing, were you kind of singing along the way, or did you start out with the instruments and then the singing just came sometime later?
Yeah, it just came. I never wanted to be a singer. I was a guitar player. That's what I wanted to do. I wasn't a great singer. I'm still not a great singer. I worked myself good enough to where I could do it. But so I was in my first band, my first real band. I was just a guitar player, and this was like 1998, and up until the timeline, it's 01 or 02, that singer quit or got fired. Depending on whose side of the story. You know how bands are, and so we didn't have a singer, and so it was we had all these gigs booked, and it was just either I step up and do it, or we don't have. We have to cancel these gigs. And so I was like, man, I'll just do it. I'll just figure out how to do it. And I've got tapes of those. I wasn't a good singer. I just wasn't good at it, man. And my dad joined the band at that point. He was a great singer. So he helped us out, get over the hump. But yeah, I just decided I needed to be a singer, and that's what I did.
And so when you're in a band, and I think you said you're like in the 13, 14 age range then?
That's when I first started playing guitar. My first band was probably 18. Well, my first real band, like serious band, was when I was 18. I was in a band with my dad and uncle and a couple cousins when I was 16 or 17, and we did a couple like paid gigs. I remember getting like enough money to go to Walmart the next day and buy a new car stereo, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And they were like, our gigs were like, we were playing for bowling alley or bowling banquets or moose lodges. It wasn't anything glamorous, but it was like I was getting real money. But yeah, 18 was like my first real working band.
And what genre of music was that?
We were classic rock, like Led Zeppelin, Leonard Skinner, Kiss, AC/DC, that kind of stuff.
All cover songs?
Initially, yeah, but we started writing right off the bat. We had that band put out a record. We went in the studio and made a record and put it out. Yeah.
Was that your first opportunity with a professional recording studio?
Yeah.
How was that?
Eye-opening. Bless the guy, Harold Thompson is who recorded that first record for us. And at the time, he had a studio over in Hollins. And he's got a really nice studio down at the lake now called Blackwater Recording. It's like top notch. But bless his heart, we came in there the morning after a gig where we probably got a couple hours sleep. And bless his sweetheart. He's a pro. Like he's well thought of. And here we come in like on a couple hours sleep, hell bent on getting in there, and we'll be loud. We're making this rock record, and he just was so kind and help us out. And we didn't know what we were doing. The record, he had to really coach us along to get us through that recording process. But yeah, that was our first experience, and we learned a lot about playing less and volume and just all that stuff.
And so when you graduate high school, probably at 18 years old, what's kind of going through your mind is kind of, where's life going to take you?
I was going to be a rock star. I was going to be playing civic centers on tour, making lots of money, living that life. That's just what I was going to do.
When did you make that decision? Was that, back at 13 when you got that guitar?
Yep. When I heard that live version of Freebird, and I saw that band in concert later that summer, when I saw and I heard people's reaction to that guitar solo, people's reaction to that song, I was like, man, I know how it makes me feel. I want to make people feel the same way with my music. That was it. That was what I wanted to do.
And so obviously your dad had a musical background. So how were your parents as far as, when it became evident that that's what you wanted to do in life, how'd your parents feel about that?
They loved it. They've been supportive the whole time. 100% all in. They've helped me buy equipment. They've been at most all the gigs. My mom has let me have my dad. My dad was in that band with me he still is at all my shows. But he was in the band until 2009, 2010. And we're talking at one point in time, we were playing, a couple of years, we were playing 250 shows a year. I mean, we were doing a lot of shows, and he was at all of them. It was great. Was
there ever a plan B for you?
It's never entered my. Maybe it was dumb, but it never crossed my. I was lucky. I got a job at Kelly's Music at a guitar shop, which that just supported what I wanted to do. The hours were built around musicians, and so I was able to make money there. So I guess that was my plan B. But that was it was just part. To me, it was all part of the same vision. So no, it was be a rock star. That was it. That's what I was going to do.
And so when you were still in high school, and playing in a band, smaller band, were you playing shows, going to school through the day and play a show in the evening and go to school the next day and that type of thing?
Yeah. I went to Runway College, and I wasn't a great student, but for sure I wasn't a great student in high school, but I did go to Roanoke and graduated. My wife, bless her heart, got me through college. She graduated in 3 years, and she's just a smart person, and so I sort of rode her coattails all the way through college.
And so when you were in college, were you still playing shows?
Yeah, that was absolutely. It was real busy. I was real busy.
When you say real busy, are we talking a couple shows a week? Are we talking Friday, Saturday?
Yeah. I can't remember when this started, but we started doing an every Tuesday thing at a club in town, and that lasted for almost 8 years. So yeah, I'm assuming it's during that time. So we were doing every Tuesday. And at that time, we were doing some Wednesdays, some Thursdays, definitely every Friday, Saturday, without fail. We were playing, no doubt. So some weeks we were playing, 4 or 5 shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why you're in college, pretending to study, pretending to go to class, pretending to be a student, all that.
Yep.
What was your major or course of study when you were in college?
Business administration.
Was there a particular reason that you chose business administration, knowing that, you really wanted to make music your future?
Probably I can't remember making a conscious decision about it other than it just made sense to me that I probably need to know something about business if I'm going to be a musician.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, we think of college kids and, maybe, bartending on the weekends or maybe, being a waiter or a waitress, something like that. During that time, were you making, some appreciable money doing all these shows?
Yeah. It's funny, I'm still in a band with a couple of those guys, and we were talking, back then, like I'd wake up on Sunday mornings and look over, and I'd have, I was flush with cash. I had, and I don't, it's not like that anymore, but I just, I had all this extra spending money, and now I've got, 3 kids, and so there's no extra money, but man, I had no idea. Looking back on it, I just would have, I mean, we were making, $100 to $200 and $250 a night, in cash. So you look, for an 18 or 19-year-old having, all those nights of cash, it's great. And I'm working at a guitar shop giving lessons, so I didn't save any of it. It all went back into guitars and equipment and studio time, and that's what I did.
That's awesome. So let's turn to, so you graduate college, barely. You graduate college. You're still, living the musician's lifestyle, still playing gigs in a band. Where do you kind of go after that once you graduated college?
So I graduated Roanoke in 2004, and by that point we were like right in the middle of the band I was in at the time called Crowbar Cane, and it continued. Like nothing changed. Like once I graduated, I just worked more at Kelly's Music, and I had more time to write songs. So that's we were still playing the same amount, and then I just worked more at Kelly's Music with the time I had from college, and eventually, around 2009, that band kind of fizzled out. There's a pattern with me, like I'm a 10-year guy. I'm good for you can keep my interest for 10 years, and then at the 10-year point, if it's not continuing to grow, it's time to do something different.
What genre of music was Crowbar Cane?
The same. So it's classic rock. It was a little more hippie oriented. We'd gotten to be a little bit like hippie rock, I would say.
What was the split between cover songs and original stuff?
I would say 70-30 in favor of covers.
And were you the lead singer?
Yeah, I sang most songs. My dad was still in the band, and he was singing too. But yeah, I was the main singer.
What instrument did your dad play in the band?
Keys, piano, and organ.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so where do you go from there when you pivot away from Crowbar Cane? Where do you go from there?
So that's when I got into country, and so my mom had been into country music the whole time that Crowbar Cane thing was happening. So and I'd wake up. I remember waking up, and the kitchen was right below my bedroom. And I remember waking up from playing a gig, and she's blasting country music, and I can smell bacon in the kitchen. So I'm like, man, I'll go down and eat, but damn, I hate that music. But so anyway, it was country music started to turn a little more like there was guitar stuff happening in country music, like Keith Urban and Jason Aldean. There was like some songs coming out that had like interesting guitar parts. Like it was kind of rock and roll oriented. And so, it interests me. And so me and some of the guys from Crowbar Cane were like, man, we should, there's nobody around here doing country music and it's really popular. And so we should, let's just put a band together, learn some songs. It's kind of rock and roll anyway. And let's see what happens. And that was around 2009, 2010 when we pivoted to that. And we got lucky because there was nobody doing it. And our first or second gig was opening up for like a national act at Elmwood Park for a festival in the park. And we were opening up for, a few thousand people right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And back then, like that was when Facebook was really, like the pages were starting to take off. And our followers grew like almost by 1,000 overnight. So we were like, oh, we're onto something. This is good. And that's what sort of like, that was a springboard into that country music.
And then once you got into the country music, did you have to then, you're getting some internet popularity, but did you find that you essentially had to start at the bottom again, or were you kind of starting in the middle as far as, getting bigger gigs, better paying gigs, opening for bigger and bigger bands?
Yeah, we got lucky and just started here. We didn't have to we didn't pay our dues in that respect. Locally, we didn't. I think because we were the only game in town, we were, most of our gigs were opening up for nationals, and the few club dates we did, it was slam. And there was lines out the door to come see us. It was crazy.
And what's the name of that band?
At that time, it was just called Rutledge. Yeah.
Okay. And how many were in that band?
I think it's 6 guys. It started out as a 6-piece band. So it was myself, Josh Pennington, Jason Weeks. My dad was playing still. Brett Foljam on drums and Jeff Hoffman on bass. So yeah, 6 guys.
So what was the trajectory of Rutledge and the country music?
So I immediately saw that, okay, we have people's attention. Let's write a song. And so my buddy Josh Pennington and I, we wrote a song called I Love My Life, and got hooked up with, I forget how we got hooked up with this guy, but a local videographer named Grant Plaskin, yeah. And anyway, we shot a video for that, like a pro video. And we had like a video release party at a local club, and it was slammed. Slammed. It was like, I was like, we are really onto something here. It's great. And the song did good. The people that were coming to see us knew the song, were rocking out to the song. The video got lots of views. So that was sort of, we started, for me, like I never wanted to be a cover band. Like that was sort of way, all right, I'm gonna get your attention. And then, all right, check out what we're doing. And so that sort of was a springboard. Okay, that song got attention. All right, let's keep writing. And so we kept writing and writing. And so that's just sort of the path.
And that actually brings up a really interesting point. So for somebody that their passion is music, performing, singing, instruments, that type of thing, would you recommend kind of getting your foot in the door with the cover songs and the cover bands and then pivoting, or like, do you think it's easier or harder to kind of start with cover songs and then go to original stuff, or if you had to do it all over again, might you start with the original stuff?
No, I think, back then, nowadays with social media, I think it's easier to get attention with covers or originals. So, back then we didn't have that. So the way to get attention was do songs people like, and then hopefully your songs blend in enough that people are from, it sounds like it fits, but it's, you're not copying. Mm-hmm. It was like, I used to have a saying, we fit in, but we don't blend in. That was sort of the idea with the original songs. It was sort of, familiar enough vibe that people weren't going, all right, I got to go take a bathroom break on this one.
Right.
It keeps. So I think doing the cover thing at first is a great, you got to get the audience. If nobody's going to listen to you, then what's the point of writing the songs, other than just the pure art of it, which is, a whole other thing. But so I would say you start doing the cover thing and then blend in your originals.
That actually brings up another point that I'm legitimately interested in is songwriting. So if you're sitting, is it does inspiration just hit you and give me my phone or give me a pad and paper and let me write it down? Or do you kind of sit down and say, okay, all right, time to write a song, all right, verse 1, here we go.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of always just sort of, I've sat down with maybe not the intention of writing, but sat down and picked up an instrument or got on the keyboard or programming drum beats, just something. I'll sit down to do something and start playing a beat, and then it just next thing you know, there's a song. It's just sort of like this, it's I try to describe it. It's sort of like this, I go in, it's this trance. It's like all of a sudden you're just like in this moment where like you're here, but you're not here. And the next thing you know, I've got a piece of a song, and it's like, it's a high. It's a really strong high, that creative moment when something's starting to work and you're hearing it like, oh, this is happening. This is good. And it's what I chase every time I sit down to write. It's that moment when you know it's working. And it's for me, it's never sitting down, all right, I'm gonna write a song today. It's just picking up something and seeing what happens. If you put too much, for me, if I put too much pressure, I'm sitting down and writing a song right now, the creativity just, to me, is hampered by that.
Do you start when you're going to write or when you're writing a song, or the beginning of writing a song, do you start with, the topic, or is the topic, the whole topic of the song, also something that comes to you when you kind of begin that process of starting with a beat or picking up the instrument?
It's kind of both. Sometimes it starts with a beat or a bass line. Sometimes I'll be watching a movie or listening to a song and go, man, or hear a line and go, man, that's a great idea for a song. How can I twist that? So sometimes it starts with an idea, like a title, and sometimes it literally just starts with like a drum beat, or a bass line or a synth part. And it's just all different ways.
I've heard, stand-up comedians will keep a pen and paper on the nightstand. If you have a dream and you think of something funny, you wake up and you write it down immediately. Mm-hmm. Is there any translation to that with songwriting?
Yeah, voice memo on the iPhone. That's I go to that all the time. Just bam, just little ideas.
That's amazing.
I'll sing a melody or say just, hey, this is a title for a song, or sing, and a lot of times I go back and listen to them and they're just absurd, but they're there.
But it's a starting point.
Yes, always.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So going back to the bands, so you've got the band Rutledge, you're doing the country music, you're gaining momentum, the lines are out the door at the club every Friday night when you're playing. Where does it then go and grow from there?
So, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but so at this point we'd written a few songs. We may have even put out like an EP, like a 5 or 6 song EP, but I was trying, and I wanted to I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to do the Nashville thing. And so I reached out to a buddy of mine named Jeff Smith, he was the guitar player. He still is a guitar player. Now he's a tour manager for Phil Vassar in Nashville. And Phil Vassar grew up in the Lynchburg area, and Jeff Smith went to high school with my mother in Amherst in the Lynchburg area. So that was that was the connection there. And my dad and Jeff had played in bands, so that was a connection. Like I'd known Jeff. There's a picture somewhere of Jeff holding me when I was a baby. Anyway, so that was a connection. I known him for a long time, and so I started reaching out to him to get him to sing background vocals on some of the stuff I was writing down in the studio in Nashville. And so he agreed to do that, and I sent some stuff down there, and he was working on it in Phil Vassar's studio. And Phil Vassar, by the way, if you don't know who Phil is, his rap sheet is insane. He's got like 20-some number ones, 20-some top 10s. It's all these things, just insane, crazy successful. And about as successful as you can be. An amazing singer, amazing piano player, just fantastic. So Jeff was working on some of my songs down in Phil's studio, and Phil popped his head in and was like, hey, man, what is that? And Jeff's like, it's my buddy. Come check it out. And Phil liked it. And so Jeff was like, man, next time you're in Nashville, let's hook up. And so we had signed with this promotion company. They were basically the deal was we were out working secondary radio markets for this song we'd written called Rub a Little Dirt on It. We're down in Nashville doing that, and Jeff was like, hey man, come tomorrow night, come to Phil's house. He wants to meet you guys. And so we're like, okay, awesome. This is going to be
Let's
cool.
do it.
Yeah, and he's like, I remember getting the call, or Jeff texted me and said his gate code is this. And I was like, he's got a gate code. What is it? So we get to the house, and it's just this beautiful house, and so I'm nervous, and me and my buddy Brian Holt were there together. We were out doing this promo stuff, and we walk in the house, and Phil's an amazing guy. I mean, he's on a Segway. He's like all over the house. It's like we're having conversations. He's popping in and out. It's just like, what is going on? There's like Phil's social media person's there. And, Phil, I remember Phil saying, we were talking about this secondary radio market that we were hitting. He's like, that's a good idea. But, and he's like, you're a great writer. We got to get you down here. Let's write some more. Let's do something. Let's figure this out. Let's make something happen. And so, that was the initial conversation, and that was sort of the stepping point. And I left town thinking, yes, this is the next step. All right, so we had taken. Now we've got like some real people with connections who are believing in what we're doing, and we can give this a real shot. And we had a few more meetings. Like I was back down there. We met with Phil's manager and publicist, and everybody sort of agreed to take us on and to give this a shot. And that was, ground zero for the Nashville shot.
So up to that point, how far was your reach? You're based out of Roanoke, Virginia, and you're doing the shows, and you're gaining in popularity. How far, was the radius of your reach? Was it, mostly Roanoke and surrounding areas, or were you starting to branch out?
Yeah, it was Roanoke.
Okay.
Like it was Roanoke. I mean, it wasn't like we weren't playing out of state at all. It was mostly just Roanoke.
But now, and also, hasn't Phil Vassar didn't he write songs for other A-list, number one worldwide hit songs?
Tim McGraw. I mean, yeah, it's he's just, if you read his rap sheet, it's just, they call it a one sheet. His one sheet is just, and they read it. I go out and play with him sometimes now before they go on stage. He goes on stage, somebody from the radio station will read it. And it's like, oh my gosh, man, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And so this was really, I imagine to you was kind of the stepping stone of, wow, like this is really something now.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like when Phil told me, he looked me in the eye, he said, man, you're a great writer. I was like, to me, I was, and the fact that he said that, and Jeff Smith, his opinion and what he thought of me, they get submissions, and people want the same thing I want from them all the time. They get it all the time, so much. And the fact that Jeff believed in what we were doing enough. Like I kept saying to Jeff and Phil, and especially to Jeff, I said, dude, I don't care what happens. Like the fact that you believe in me enough to give this a shot, that's all I need. And Jeff kept saying, well, man, we're going to need some other people to believe in you the same way too. Like just chill. And I was like, no, I'm just telling you, man, it means, so much. So anyway, yeah.
Awesome. And so what did that ultimately materialize in?
Well, we made a record in Nashville. It was, so at that point, this was, I can't remember what year it was. Anyway, it was springtime, and we went down in order to make a record to release in the summer. We had, I had Phil's manager managing me. I had a publicist. I had a social media team. We were making real. It was like, I was taken care of. It was great. I wasn't making any social media. I didn't even pay attention to it. I had to feed them. They'd say, hey, just send us some content, take a picture doing this, and they handled it all. It was amazing. And so we went down to the studio and made a record. It was 6 songs. It was called Runway, and some of the songs I was a writer on, and some of the songs I wasn't. Jeff Smith had some songs that he'd written with some other people that were amazing that were on the record too. And so we recorded that, and we did a few months worth of publicity leading up to its release. We made a music video for this. Like the main single off that record was called "Love Kicking In," and we went and made a legit music video for that. And it actually it premiered on CMT.com, their website, CMT's website, and it was number 1 on there for a couple of days. It did really good. So anyway, and the record came out, and that's sort of like it started to peak there. And then that was the next step. That's what it all led to.
That's awesome. And so are you getting radio airway time in Nashville and the markets from there?
A little bit, yeah. We saw so there's a station in town at so 107 WYYD. Scott Stevens is the program director there, and he is a great friend and he's championed me since I met him, and so he was playing me. He was playing me before I went to Nashville. Like he was on the team early. He's just been great. So yeah, and so when that record came out, I was getting played in Roanoke, and there was some secondary markets. I don't remember, and kind of scattered, not all over the country really, but not a ton of them. Then there's some stuff in Nashville I was getting played on. It was starting to build, and at that time Spotify, everybody was really paying attention to streaming. It was like, what are your streaming numbers? Yeah. But so my Spotify numbers were trending in the right direction. Everything was moving like that. The shows back home, once that record came out and all that publicity and people were seeing like CMT, it was like there was a different energy for that summer's worth of shows. It felt like we were taking those steps. It was happening.
You were Mr. Big Time.
It was feeling like it, yeah.
And Nashville for country music, I mean, that's Hollywood for actors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's where you need to be and want to be.
That's where everybody is. Mm-hmm.
All right. And so just to kind of continue the story, kind of, once you're climbing quickly in Nashville and you're signing autographs and kissing babies, that proverbially that type of thing. And so where do you go from there?
Well, so, once that first record came out, we had a showcase and through management, I got put in front of a bunch of people. I put in front of the right booking agents, a bunch of labels, and it just so nothing. I didn't get signed from that. From all that, I didn't get assigned to a booking agent or a label, and so which was a real bummer. So at that point it was I didn't have financial support from a label. So, everything that was happening from that point on was funded by me. I had to raise money, which, was, I never liked having to do that. I did a couple, what are those things called? It wasn't a GoFundMe, or maybe it was.
Like a crowdfunding type
Yeah,
thing?
I did a couple of those things, and it was very helpful. But, I never liked that. I don't like asking for money. I just never liked it. Yeah. So anyway, I did that and got enough money to kind of keep it going, and make another record, do some more videos, and to put that stuff out. And it just never happened. It sort of peaked and just sort of fizzled out. It's never got over that hump.
Now, you had some national fame and national notoriety here in the last, about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, where you were on E's Clash of the Cover Bands.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember, I think I saw like a social media teaser that you posted on that. I think I'd seen, honestly, I think I'd maybe seen a trailer for it on TV that it was, hey, this show's coming. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds kind of cool. And then I think I saw you posted something on social media, saying that you were going to be on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, I know a guy that's going to be on this show. And so how did that come about that you got in touch, or the right people got in touch with you, that became a reality? And what was that like?
Man, that was a crazy story. So, I was in Myrtle Beach with my band. At this point, we were called Adam Rutledge, just my name. And it was me and Andy Nykirk and Chris Nykirk. We were a 3-piece band, and we were playing in Myrtle Beach. And, I remember talking to our sound guy, Billy, and I was like, man, I feel like this is all sort of like, I feel like this is sort of the final run. I feel like I'm done. Like I'm comfortable, we've had a great run. I just feel like it's time to do something different. And this was a Friday night, after we got done playing that night, it's like 2 a.m. I pick up my phone and we're leaving, and I get this email, and the subject said something to the effect of, it was Jimmy Fallon's name was in the subject of it. I was like, okay, deleted it. Ooh. And so about an hour later, a form comes in through our website, this Keith Urban band website, which, by the way, I formed the band. We did 2 shows with a totally different band down in Georgia, and I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore. This was like maybe a year before that. So the website was still up, but it was not an active thing. I wasn't pursuing it. I get this form comes in, same heading. I was like, well, I guess I better look at it. And it was a woman. She said her name was Kat. She said, "Hey, I'm wondering if anyone's reached out to you. We're a casting agent for this show Jimmy Fallon's doing about cover bands, tribute bands. Has anyone reached out to you? Are you available to talk?" So I was like, I said it to my buddy Andy. He was like, "Yeah, okay." So I messaged her back at like 3 a.m. I said, "Yeah, call me tomorrow. I'm free pretty much anytime." And she said, "Okay." Gave her my number, and the next day, sure enough, she called. And she's like, "Hey, has anyone reached out to you?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "I'm shocked because you look great." I was like, "Okay." She said, "We're doing this show." At the time, she said it was going to be like a one-day shoot out in L.A. And she said, Adam Lambert's going to be a judge. Megan Trainor's going to be a judge. And I was like, I'm having this phone call, and me and my bandmates, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is real. This is legit." And so she scheduled I had another couple interviews with her, and we passed all the, I kept having interviews, and we passed, and the next time it'd be like executive producer, and then with another executive producer, and it kept getting to the point, and then it was, "Okay, are you available for," so what turned into a one-day shoot was like 10 days, 10-day shoot. It was a long trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But they just found me on the internet, and we made it onto the show, and they flew us out to LA, and it was first class, man. It was just the best experience.
And so for anybody that hasn't seen the show, you were Keith Urban. They actually did hair and makeup to make you look a little bit more like Keith Urban.
Right.
And you performed a couple Keith Urban songs for the judge.
Right. So I had a Keith Urban wig, and so you go through hair and makeup, and you go through wardrobe, and it's all like, it's done up, man. And it's they do everything they can do to look like Keith. That's the deal.
Did you have any, you said the band was kind of short-lived of the, kind of the Keith Urban cover band, but did you have any, were you making YouTube videos? Like how did a casting director, find you as Keith Urban when that was kind of a short-lived thing? I wasn't making any social media posts about it. There was no videos. There was nothing, just a website. And I had an Instagram page and Facebook page, but they weren't active. She just found the website. Yeah, just found a website. Go figure. Okay, and then so when you were doing the interviews with the kind of the corporate people, was that, was it a video call? Did you have to? Were you performing? Were you sending in videos of performances? Was it phone calls? How did that interview process go?
Yeah, so the first one I did, they wanted me in full Keith Urban mode. So it was makeup, tattoos, all that stuff. And the first one I had to sing a few songs, and then they just talked to me, and they were all video.
Okay.
But the first one was, okay, let's see how he looks and sounds, and because there wasn't any live performance. They didn't, the promo video we shot sounded great, done at the studio. They didn't have any idea how I sounded live.
Okay.
And so that's what that one was. And then the rest of them were, they kept asking for us to like during sound checks of Adam Rutledge playing, they would want us to do like, "Can you get us some live footage of you guys doing these songs?" So we'd have to send that stuff in. And then the rest of them weren't, I wasn't in costume. It was just, they just wanted to talk,
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And remind me, the guy that you went against on the show, who was he covering?
Tim McGraw.
That's right. Was his name also Adam?
It was.
And then there was also Adam Lambert was the judge.
Yes.
I remember there was a lot of Adam confusion on that episode.
Yeah, sure. Yep, there's a lot of Adams. Yeah.
And how long the actual shooting was it was the performances were on different days, right? So 2 performances made it to air. Were there any additional performances that were filmed for the show that didn't make it to air?
So we did, let me remember, we shot the individual performances first, and that was done, that was a day worth of shooting, and then we came back and did the battle round a different day. But there were other days where we had to do, like I had to do interview footage, so that was another couple of days, and we had to do like a ton of B-roll, and those were like multiple days. it was the bummer of it all, man. It was, we're out here in LA, like our hotel is right at the foot, like we're looking up at the Hollywood sign. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's awesome. We're, it's just, and it was during COVID. So we were tested constantly. And so I was scared to go out anywhere because I didn't want to get COVID. And if you get COVID, you're sort of stuck out there. You can't fly back. You're stuck. And at that point, I was already like homesick and missing my kids. My wife did fly out, and spend a few days with me out there, but I was leading up to that 10-day period out there, I was out on the road with my Kiss tribute band for 3 days prior to that. So I was like, for 4 days actually. So I was gone for a long time. It was like, they were trying to get me to I had to take COVID tests when I was in Florida with the Kiss band and like overnight it to them. It was hectic, man. But, dude, what an experience. It was so amazing.
So what if anything came out of that? So the show aired probably months later after you actually taped it.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, sitting on the couch and watching it on the premiere date. So what, if anything, happened kind of once that aired and you're kind of interjected into the, the mainstream? Yeah. Did that, strap a rocket launcher to you even more, or what happened from that?
Yeah, I got a lot of calls for a lot of gigs and really good money. And I just so the band, we learned for the show we had to learn like 90 seconds of a few songs ready. That was it.
Okay.
And so we never this band wasn't part of the band that I'd done the shows with Keith Urban. It was a totally different band. So we weren't ready to play any shows, right? So we kept getting these calls for shows and I was like, we're not. The booking agents would call and like, we're just not, no. A couple times we agreed to do them because they were months in advance, and it just never worked out to where we could like capitalize on the momentum from that show. So we didn't do it. We never played the show.
Oh my gosh.
We just did that TV show. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned your lovely wife a few times, and so how has she been supportive of you through this entire journey? Because you guys have been together for a long, long, long time, right?
Yeah, we met in high school. So since 1998, we've been together. She's I don't know how, man, but she is somehow. I'm not the easiest person to be married to. I'm sort of. I don't know how to do anything just for fun. Like it's always got to be for something, and so that creates a sort of. I don't know, a competitiveness that's sort of all consuming to me at times. And she's just, she's really like even keeled. She's just very, she just deals with it. And she's supportive. She doesn't just deal with it. She helps. I couldn't, who's going to help with the kids while I'm out doing this stuff? She's just, I don't know how she does it because I'm not easy.
Is she musically inclined?
No. No, she. If I was on He Wants to Be a Millionaire or something like that, and I had a lifeline for a music, it'd be her. She knows every song, who did it, the title of it. She's great with that, but she can't sing or play. No.
Okay. And so, do you run? If you're writing a song, are you running the lyrics by her? Like, hey, what do you think of this? Does this sound good?
Not until it's done. She'll hear it when it's done, and my kids are that way too. They'll shoot me straight. They will let me know if something's hitting, something's not hitting.
And how old are your kids now?
I have twins that are 8, and my youngest daughter is 6.
And are they into music at all?
Yeah, my son is sort of like, I think he's liking drums a little bit, but that's about it. Just sort of lightly into it.
And so, as we start to land the plane here, what are some words of wisdom or words of advice that you would give to the 13, 15, 18-year-old who loves music? They heard their version of Freebird and they love it and they've caught the bug and they want to do it and they're thinking about making, how can I make this a career? What are some pieces of advice that you would give to those kids?
I would say, you have to be all in. You have to just be all in, man. And I'm trying to think. It's funny because I'm trying to think how I would tell my kids to do it. Knowing what I know now,
Well, would you change it now? Now, Monday morning quarterbacking,
Yeah.
A couple of decades later from when you were, kind of got to that point of this is what I want to do. If you could go back and change anything, would you go back and change anything, or do you think, I probably did it the right way?
I don't think I would do anything differently. I do think that I would adjust my definition of success. And I think back then, my definition of success was getting a record deal and having all this money and being famous. And as I've gotten older, and now that I'm coaching in my kids' sports, I've become like a John Wooden disciple. And, his definition of success is, I'm paraphrasing, it's peace of mind that's a direct result of self-satisfaction from knowing that you've done the best you could do to become the best of which you are capable. And I think that, to me, that makes more sense. Everybody is, John Wooden he was an English teacher, and he would say that parents would get upset because their kids were getting C's. And his thing was, every kid's not meant to get an A in English. If they're working their hardest and doing everything they can do to do their best, then they get a C. That's what it is. And so I think if I could look back, and I would adjust my definition of success to something more along those lines.
Interesting. Well, that's really deep. I didn't know John Wooden was an English teacher, but that's a really great way to define success. It's easy to think of success as being, Ferraris and, mansions and, servants and that type of thing. And, famous such that if you walk through an airport, every 10 feet, somebody's asking to take a picture with you.
Yeah.
But success, it can be very different things, and success can come in very different forms. Do you think that anybody is ever too young or too old to get into, if music's their passion? Can you be too young or too old to get into music?
No, not from just a passion standpoint. Absolutely not. No, now, the industry will tell you from that standpoint for sure you can be too old, but not from a passion standpoint. No way. Absolutely not. No way.
Interesting. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being here. This is a great conversation. I've known you for a long time, and I didn't know all the, the beginnings and all the beginning stories. I've had an opportunity to see you play live a number of times, and you give a tremendous live performance every single time.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here, and really great conversation.
Thanks for having me, my brother.
Big thanks once again to Adam Rutledge for joining us on the podcast. You can follow Adam on Instagram at I am Adam Rutledge, and you can see him at adamrutledgemusic.com. I look forward to having you join us for another episode. In the meantime, keep following your passions and achieving your dreams.